So, when the saints and sages say that through meditation and discipline, you gather insights of the world and the worldly affairs and move towards nirvana, move towards what you call in Hindi moksha. It essentially means that you have gathered the consciousness much larger than your own individual consciousness with which you were born with. So when you are born, we don't even know, what was the consciousness level. Maybe it was a universal consciousness which was driving you, driving your life energy within your body, or it was just a small amount of consciousness, just like a ant or a elephant, any other animals who are conscious enough to survive and smart enough to to get food and solve puzzles to get food. So their entire life is about survival. When we talk about between humans and animals, this is the biggest distinction what we have gathered. It's not that other animals cannot achieve these distinctions, just that they are currently not conscious enough to actually seek those kind of additional enlightenment and consciousness. So essentially what happens is when you are doing meditation and essentially trying to find answers to your questions which no one is able to answer for this world, the universe, your life, your being, who you are and why you were born and why people die and how the rebirth or those cycles happen. So essentially once you start getting those answers through your own mind, basically your mind connects with the universal consciousness, and it actually seeks answer through this universe, because you are unable to get these answers from other individuals. You seek answer through the universal consciousness itself. So once you start gathering those answers, essentially you have established a connection with the universal consciousness of this universe. So the more and more answers you get, you are achieving nirvana while you are being alive itself, not really after the death or something. What I personally feel is that you are achieving nirvana or moksha before dying. So that moksha means you have gathered most of the answers to your questions and you have become much more enlightened than you were a few years ago or when you were born. So essentially what happens is like you have graduated in your life, just like we graduate from school and colleges, all the classes which you attain, basically all the grades you attend in the school. You eventually graduate from the school in 10th standard, 12th standard, etc. And then you go to college, you study for 3 to 5 years, and then you graduate, and then you do post-graduation, PhDs, multiple level of PhDs, doctorates. You write theses, you write different articles, you write books, you write autobiographies. Basically, whatever you do after particularly your graduation and post-graduation is essentially to enlighten other people. That's the reason you get so distinguished in the society, you get recognized in the society. So you are gradually graduating beyond your graduations, post-graduations, PhDs, etc. by writing those articles, by doing research and development, by doing investigations, whatever work you do. So you are gradually graduating, you are getting, if you are working, if you are in a job, you get promotions or you get better jobs within the organization you are working or beyond that organization. So essentially you are graduating in your life, but this is only for your worldly affairs, worldly affairs. When you graduate in your life, from your life, essentially you graduate towards the next level, the higher level of consciousness. So you will not be born with similar level or lesser level of consciousness. You will be born again with a higher level, or maybe much higher level, depending upon how much nirvana or moksha you have attained through those meditation and self study. So essentially, that is part of your inner energy engineering, as Sadguru or many other gurus talk about. When you do yoga, meditation, etc., people meditate for hundreds of years sometimes. Basically in India, there is a tradition that people go to Himalayas and basically meditate for hundreds of years. So what they are doing, they are not just chanting some mantras or shlokas or something. They are essentially doing inner engineering. They are trying to find ways to connect with the god or almighty, or the higher beings or deities, or etc., whatever you call them. So they are trying to achieve those higher level of consciousness, which is beyond your body and mind, which you basically attain while doing the worldly affairs or worldly studies, science, technology, etc. This is much beyond that. So essentially you gain higher level of consciousness. So you graduate from your life. So once you graduate, the level of graduation, the level of percentage, the level of distinction you gather while graduating, like Buddha, Gautam Buddha might have got much more level of consciousness than most of the other saints in Sanatan Dharma. So you actually gain a higher level of consciousness once you pass on, once you remove your consciousness from your body and mind. So once you get merged with the universal consciousness after you die, so this is my strong belief that you are part of that universal consciousness, what even Sadguru talks about and many other people talks about. You actually attain a higher level of consciousness once you are sort of reborn into another bubble. So essentially, let's say if you have gathered knowledge of this universe, universal beings and all. So what will happen? You don't need to be born in the same universe in some planet as a being, a human being or an animal or something. So that will actually bring me to another point after this. So essentially you get born as a higher being, maybe as a deity, as a god or something. Basically you will oversee things in the universe or beyond this universe. So universe is a physical aspect. You have a Brahma as part of Hindu beliefs. You have Brahma for each of the universes. So essentially there is always a concept of multiverse, but that multiverse applies to physical aspects of the world. So when we talk about consciousness, when we talk about level of achievements in life, we are talking beyond the physical aspect. So they could be hundreds and thousands and millions and billions or trillions or excuse me, infinite number of basically universes. But consciousness is something much beyond the physical world, because each universe will be governed by their own set of values, whether we talk about in terms of physics, chemistry or mathematics. They will have their own constants and variables, their own equations to drive the world and the worldly equations. So basically they will have their own design. Every universe will have its own design. So it's very, very, very likely that there are multiple universes governed by different equations, different level of not level, basically different type of design. So what design we have in our universe, it may not be the same, or it will be entirely different in other universes. So like we have the wavelength and frequencies of light, what we can see, the light spectrum, radio frequencies, the universal constant of basically the speed of light, and many things, sound waves, and periodic table in terms of chemistry, DNA, RNAs, everything. It would be entirely different. Maybe there's no DNA, RNA, or periodic table, or maybe their periodic table is different in some other universe, and the light speed will be different. The light frequency will be different. And thing which we call darkness might be light for them. Light for us might be darkness for them. Our colors will look different in that universe. So their senses, the beings, whether they are there or not, will be different. So it will be entirely different. But anyway, coming back to this universal consciousness, since you have achieved nirvana, since you have achieved moksha before dying, because this is something which I differ from the other saints and sages, you actually attain nirvana before you die, not after you die. And I think some of these saints also talk like that. That person has achieved nirvana. That person has achieved moksha. So it's like achieving moksha means you have graduated in your life. So it's not in your studies on that particular field of study. See, when you are graduating, when you are doing post graduation, when you are doing PhDs, you do it on a particular worldly subject. So, or maybe out of this world subject, you may do research on multiverse or time or something like that. But anything, you actually study on a particular subject. But when you talk about graduating from life, achieving nirvana, means basically you have generally achieved graduation in your life much beyond the normal subjects what you study. And you have done it on your own, through your inner engineering, through your seeking of answers from your own mind and body, instead of seeking answers from someone else. You are connecting your insights to the universe itself. You are plugging in yourself to the universal consciousness. You are plugging in your mind to the universal consciousness to seek the answers. So the universe is actually giving. So in other world, your universe is actually inside you, because the one which we see is only the physical aspect of it. The actual universe, what we call in Hinduism, in Sanatan Dharma, is within you. The consciousness is the universe. The universal consciousness is the universe. Based on the consciousness, all these values, constants and variables get defined, and the universe gets born and dead, die. Everything physical has a cyclic aspect. Everything will get repeated again and again. But our consciousness is entirely different. It may not have to be repeated again and again. Difference between a live object, whether it's plants or animals or something, they are alive. They don't need to move in a set pattern. They don't need to grow in a set pattern. Humans, every human look different because they grow differently. They grow their cells differently. They have this some subconsciousness which they don't understand normally. So that subconsciousness is actually, that level of consciousness is driving the growth of their body as well as decay of their body. So cells keep on generating and regenerating and decaying and dying in your body, in your mind. Basically, when I say mind, basically in your brain. So they keep getting generated, degenerated every second of your life. So, and that is being driven by the universal consciousness as well as your subconscious mind. So every cell, it has its own memory. Every cell is actually communicating with the universe. You are not communicating as a consciousness, as a conscious mind. So once you start communicating with the universe yourself, directly with the universe, your body is only the physical aspect of it. The cells, the cell memory is only the physical aspect of it. When you start communicating, you go beyond the physical aspect of this body, mind, as well as the universe itself. So whether it's multiverse or beyond universe or anything, it doesn't matter, because you are connecting with the universal consciousness. You can call it God or anything. You are directly interfacing and connecting. It's like you are plugging in to that particular universal consciousness. So once you have plugged in, you start gathering more and more answers. You start downloading the data into your mind through your brain. You are basically storing, you are caching in that data into your brain. You are processing that data through your brain. Your brain is your temple, is your machine basically, which is used to process that data. That data is what is important. So when you die, it's not necessary that you leave that data in that body, in that mind, in your brain. You can carry that data as part of the universal consciousness. You don't need this physical aspect to carry that information. So that is very difficult to understand, because like when we talk about multiple dimensions beyond three-dimensional world, it becomes very difficult to imagine. So the same way, how do you move to the universal consciousness? How do you keep that data after you die, after you shed your physical body and mind and your brain, is difficult for us to understand. Even to me, it is very difficult to understand, because I still haven't achieved that nirvana. Once I achieve that nirvana, I may have all the answers, what I seek. And again, it depends upon what you seek. When you are trying to seek only money, or maybe you are seeking time travel or answers to the universe, you will get those answers eventually, if you have sufficient amount of time, if you devote more time in researching, investigating, understanding, doing this inner engineering through meditation. Because when you are meditating, you are basically disconnecting yourself from the physical aspects of this world. So you are connecting with sort of like the virtual reality, which is actual reality. Because this physical reality, what we see, is only the physics of it. It's only the science of it. So it's only the design of it. It's a framework. But beyond this framework is the actual thing. Framework is defined to achieve something, basically to get some results as a solution to a problem. But you need to find the problem itself. Basically you need to know the problem itself. You are basically getting stuck with the solution. So it's like you say that A plus B equals to C. So you're finding the values basically of A, B and C, instead of finding why A plus B is C and why do we need to have this formula. So essentially you are trying to get involved and engrossed and busy, because that's as per design. Humans are designed, all the animals are designed. Like animals are designed to find food as soon as they are born. Same is with humans. A child is born, he starts crying. Basically it wants food, it wants basically to be inside the body of its mother. It doesn't want to be removed because it feels basically scared, because it's a shock of his life when he is born, he or she is born. And basically he doesn't know what to do. Basically he gets completely disoriented. Where am I, where I have come? It's like a universe is born. Basically when the universe was born, it was a utter chaos. There was absolutely nothing. It was born out of nothing to this physical aspect what we know. So the same way a child is also born. Now when we talk about achieving nirvana, I was talking about another aspect. Now we say that we go through 64,000 rebirths before being born as a human being. Now why do you call that 64,000 rebirths before getting born as a human? Is because it depends upon the level of consciousness you have at the time of dying. That's the reason people talk about shedding their guilt. Basically essentially if you have done something wrong, you try to correct those things by doing good things, and you try to correct those things by visiting certain places. Like you say Ganga naha liya, to Ganga naha liya to sare paap dhul gaye. So the reason people call that way, whether it happens or not, you are basically cleansing your consciousness, because if you don't cleanse your consciousness, you will not achieve that higher level of consciousness, because you will always feel guilty about doing things which you have done wrong, which you could have done better, because your body and your mind will be in constant state of flux, where you keep on cycling about these worldly affairs. What all things you have done, it will keep on haunting you. Since it is continuously haunting you, it is not allowing your mind to seek the expansion, of your knowledge space, and your basically to perform at a higher level. That's the reason, like some of the companies, when they hire you, they will do the background check of yours. That background check is not only to confirm your employment history, etc. They sometimes also evaluate your credit history, etc. The reason they evaluate the credit history is not just to understand what kind of character you have. It also ensures that if you have some kind of debts or something, you clear those debts before joining that particular organization. The reason they ask you to clear those debts is basically to have that peace of mind, because if you continue with the debt, you will keep getting those disturbing calls for recovery. People will start abusing you, or people will start threatening you, the people will start scaring you, or doing all sorts of things. So that way you won't be able to perform at your best when you're working on that particular job, when you're continuously basically traumatized and harassed and haunted by those people trying to recover the funds of the banks or those financial institutes. So that's the reason they check your credit history, credit worthiness, etc., to ensure that you are completely clean in your credit worthiness, and you don't have any baggages to carry. So essentially, when you achieve nirvana, when you leave your body, you don't have any baggages to carry. You don't have any guilt. You don't have any sense of basically this worldly affair. You go beyond these worlds. So tomorrow, if an apocalypse come in this world, in the planet Earth, and before the apocalypse, if you have achieved nirvana, then you will not feel any guilt while you are dying with others. Basically others will have, oh, I wanted to do these things, I wanted to go here, I wanted to earn this much of money, or I wanted to have this kind of car, I wanted to have this big house or bungalow. And basically they will try to find ways to stick to this particular world. The world itself is dying, the earth is getting destroyed, but they will keep on thinking that, oh, I wanted to do this in this world. To them, the world is this earth, their house, their home, their family. That's the reason in Hinduism, you have a sannyas ashram after you become old. Before you die, there is a mandatory phase, or at least it's a guideline that you should take sannyas after after you have married your children, after you have achieved sufficient amount of success in the world. You then go beyond the world. You go do sannyas, do that inner energy, try to achieve nirvana and moksha based on your level of intelligence and consciousness, so that you basically do better after you die. So you have done good, bad, or ugly, whatever you have done something excellent in your life, but that is done. Basically after then, you work towards your future self beyond, after you die. That is what you are securing, your future after your death. So I think you achieve nirvana or moksha by attaining higher level of consciousness. You get enlightened, answers to your questions, so that those questions don't haunt you while you're dying. You should not feel that when you're dying, oh, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, I wanted to do this before I die. This regret should not be there. So that is the ultimate goal of nirvana, that you leave all the regrets, you achieve enlightenment, so that you do not have to get born. Because if you latch on to those regrets, that universal consciousness will again put you into a human body or an animal or something, depending upon the level of consciousness you have at the time of dying. So basically, it doesn't matter what you do in your world, in the world, how much bad you were during the entire life. I know it's not really fair uh, that you were a criminal, a hardened criminal, maybe a serial killer, but before dying you become a saint. There are many examples in Hinduism where, like Valmiki, who wrote this entire epic Ramayana. He was a basically he was a serial murderer. He was a dakat. He was a daku. So he was a very bad person. You know. So suddenly, out of accident, he get enlightened to write about Ramayana. Like Muhammad started having dreams of God and started seeing God in his dreams, and then started basically remembering those dreams and then started preaching to others. The same way Valmiki had this dream of Ramayana, and he basically wrote the Ramayana, the entire Ramayana itself, the entire epic. So that's how he achieved Nirvana. I don't know whether he achieved it or not. At least he got enlightened to an extent that he was able to, not to an extent, to a big extent, that he wrote such a big epic called Ramayana. Otherwise, people wouldn't have known about Lord Ram and Sita ji, etc., Ravan, etc. So he was able to write such a big epic which has so much of learning. So whether it is true or not, I don't care. Of course, we are finding gradually we are discovering Ram Setu between India and Sri Lanka. So quite a lot of things are being discovered. Dwarkar Nagari is discovered. So Mahabharata and Gita becomes true. So basically all the truth is being discovered. But it's very difficult to discover. So if the world and entire world, the earth has been remade, atom by atom. So how is it that we will find everything? After every yug, after 4.32 millions of years, there is a change of the world. There will be a apocalypse, and the slate will be clean, and then afterwards new beings will get born. So it's very difficult to find traces of older beings. So you may find fossils and fossil fuels and all, but it's very difficult to find the entire world. So just because you can't find it doesn't mean that they did not exist, or they will not exist in the future as well, because it's a cyclic thing, cyclic phase. So yeah, so essentially the topic of this discussion was basically you achieve nirvana in your life through extensive research you do with your mind, only using your mind and your knowledge and learning you have gathered till that particular time when you start that phase of your mind, which is called sannyasa in Indian tradition, in Hinduism, in Sanatan Dharma. So by doing those research, those inner engineering, you actually get connected to the entire universe, beyond the universe, beyond this worldly affair, much beyond the universe and any form of time and space. So there is no concept of time, space, universe, universes, multiverse, or beings or anything when you get connected with that universal consciousness. It's much beyond everything. So when you are connected to them, they will pass on the data, the information which you seek. Eventually, you have to work for it, work hard to it. You have to establish the connection. It's like encrypted, basically it's a high level of encryption. So even if you are connected, you will not get that answer image. You will have to hack that answer. It's almost impossible to get those answers normally. So you have to keep on hacking, brute force attack. You have to do all sorts of hacking attempts to gather that data, to decrypt that data, which is lying beyond these universes or worldly affairs, much beyond these universes. So that data is highly encrypted, much beyond the encryption levels which we do in this world, in the computer world. So that one has huge data. So you have to be an ultimate hacker, almost like a god, to actually, because that data is encrypted to be decrypted by God Himself, that Almighty Himself. It's not supposed to be decrypted by a human being or any other being or any other universal, basically consciousness. So it is only to be used, it is a secret data, it's a confidential data which is there in the custody of God. So they will not share this data just like that unless you know how to hack it, unless you probably plead and discuss. So there are multiple ways of gathering that data. Either you will worship the God, so that God becomes kind enough, they get convinced that you genuinely seek that data and you genuinely will not misuse that data or share unnecessarily all these secrets with someone who is not worthy of basically knowing that information. So you will genuinely gather that information and you are trustworthy and you are a good person who will not misuse or become evil gathering that data. Like, when we talk about Rakshas or evil or Lucifer or demons or monsters, so essentially what they do, they gather some of these data, and instead of becoming a good universal being, they become demons and monsters, devil. So that's how it happens. So if you gather that data, you can become a bad person, after you die or something. So God have to keep that information safe. So you either gather that information by asking God Himself, so that God will give information what they feel comfortable giving you, or you hack for that data. And both of these things require a lot of devotion and meditation. Devotion towards what you are meditating for, what you are seeking. So you don't need to be devoted to a God or Almighty, or keep on worshipping them, keep on praising them. You can seek the information through your own hard work by doing those hacking attempts. You can hack that data, and God can keep on plugging those loopholes, like we see those plugs being made in the form of security patches in softwares and operating systems, etc., in systems. So the same way God will keep on plugging if they don't trust you. But if they start trusting you, they will allow you to eventually hack that data and gather that information, or they will themselves give it to you. So you don't really need to worship them. You don't really need to praise them or butter them or basically keep on praising them. You can simply try to do the hard work of gathering the data yourself. Once God starts trusting you, they will let you have it. Even if you are not praising them, they will basically get out of your way to gather that information if they feel comfortable. So you don't really need to worship them. You just need to be genuine and honest. You just need to be open-hearted. You don't need to have, basically you should not have any malignant intent to gather that information. You genuinely should seek that information to enlighten yourself, to know the reality, to know the truth about these worldly affairs, to know what this world is all about. Why are you born? What is the level of your consciousness and how much you can improve this consciousness to become that higher being, a deity. Why God makes you a deity is because they also want helping hands. Basically they need a team to do these worldly affairs, to take care of the universal constants, and design and development of the universe itself, to take care of, to maintain the balance. So that's the reason you have these concepts of avatars. Those avatars are born because if the balance, if there is an imbalance, if there is a lot of evil, then of course you have to do something. You have to come to that world to maintain the balance, to destroy the evil, so that the balance should be there. Evil will exist, evil will be there, but it has to be in a balanced manner. Basically, it has to be well balanced. If the balance starts tilting towards the bad thing, towards darkness, then of course God will be born and they will correct the thing. That is as per design again. If the design becomes, if the software becomes too buggy, if the operating system becomes too buggy, then of course you have to release a patch to fix it, or you have to upgrade the operating system itself. So upgrading means what? Apocalypse. If it becomes too evil to fix, then what will you do? You will do a clean set. You will either basically a bug cannot be fixed when you are reformatting. You reformat a hard drive or SSD. That will not fix a bug which exists. It will only fix any problems with that particular installation. If the data becomes corrupt, or if some files become corrupt, then that can be fixed when you are reinstalling the operating system. So that's why you have 4 yukes. So essentially 4 versions of the operating system, and after the 4th yuke, it will be an entire apocalypse. The entire universe will collapse, and then a new universe will be born. So what will happen? Basically, you are changing the operating system itself. Initially, you are reformatting it through each of these yukes, and after 4 formats, it becomes so corrupt and buggy that you have to completely wipe it off. So clean the slate completely. The slate itself. See, when you are cleaning the slate every time, it remains dirty. It doesn't become completely clean. Every time you are cleaning and rewriting in the slate, eventually it will become too dirty to be cleaned. So you have to change the slate itself. You need to buy a new slate. You need to procure a new slate. You need to bring a new slate. And then you start writing and then rewriting after removing the earlier thing. So those are the phases or yukes of the world. After those 4 yukes are gone, you have to remove that slate. It needs to be discarded. Like you are writing into a floppy drive or a tape. It can be used only for a number of times. After that, you have to discard them and you have to use a new tape. Otherwise, the data will remain corrupted. It will become corrupt even when you are reformatting it and rewriting it. So, to remove the evil, to remove the bugs, sometimes you have to completely rewrite a new operating system. So, you can't keep on patching those operating systems. So, you can't keep on releasing a new version of that particular operating system. You have to create a new operating system itself. So that's how universe gets collapsed completely. Old operating system gone. New operating system comes in place. New universe will be in place in lieu of that universe. Now in this world, multiple operating system exists. So the same way, universe is not one. There's no one operating system. There are multiple universes. So all the universes at a particular time are being rewritten or decommissioned, essentially collapsed, new universe born in its place. It may not be exactly the same location, same place, same reality. It could be some other reality. It doesn't matter. Basically, a reality gets destroyed, recreated, and while being recreated, it goes through multiple cycles of creation. So destruction and creation before the reality itself collapses and a new reality is born. So this creation, destruction, all these cycles, it's not necessary that you sunset one operating system to create another operating system. A new operating system can be born while another operating system is already in existence. So like that you can have these analogy with the entire universe. What does it mean? That means basically everything is by design. You understand one design, a design aspect of one particular element. It could be water. Using the analogy of water waves, you can understand the waves of anything, basically, particularly gravity. So gravity moves just like water. Just like you have waves in water, you have waves in gravity, and gravity will have both time and space. So that is something very unique, which I have also understood. Eventually, it was very difficult for me to understand time and space, but now I understand that time and space moves in waves. It's not a straight line, and it actually depends on gravity. So the gravity directly impacts time and space. Inside a black hole, there is no time and space. That's why it is black. And there is no matter, it's all ions, maybe not ions also, only charges, only energy in its purest form. So no positive, negative ions or something, it's only energy. So when those energy gets released with burst, a universe is born. So that's how that energy came into our universe. It came through a black hole where the energy was trapped. There was no time and space inside that black hole because the gravity was too high. So it becomes absolute zero. What you call it? Singularity, yes. As per Einstein, it becomes singularity. Basically, nothing exists beyond singularity. No time, space, no sense of time and space. So through those singularity, and I feel in our universe, the entire universe is not born that way. I feel every galaxy has a black hole, and that's the reason the galaxies are shaped in spiral way. Where do you have these elliptical pathways where the things are going inwards, inside to the center? It's like a twister or tremor, or you have what you call, I'm forgetting the name. Inside the water, you have these sinkholes. So when there is a sink being built, so what will happen? Basically, it will keep on spiraling, and it will attract all the elements around it in a spiral way. Basically, you will have an elliptical path. Yes, eventually you will get trapped into the event horizon of it, and then eventually you go inside. So that's how it happens in black hole. So black hole will keep on sucking all the energy in this world, whether it's in the form of light, planet, matter, whatever it is, stars, till it becomes too overwhelmed, too much filled with energy, and then it will burst out that form of energy, that pure energy. I don't think it is ions. Till now I was thinking that it's ions trapped. Since they are not moving, see, those ions, when they stop moving, atoms are formed with moving ions. If the ions are not moving, there is no light, there is no sound, nothing will be there. Basically everything, sound propagate through atoms. That's vibrating the atoms on their own whole, and that's how we observe the sound, those vibrations. Similarly, if the vibration frequency is in the visible spectrum of light, you see things. So if the vibrations are between 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, if the atoms are vibrating, if the air is vibrating, air atoms, air molecules are vibrating at the frequency of 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, humans hear them. If they are vibrating lesser than 20 hertz, you don't hear it, you only feel it, feel the vibration. If it is more than 20 kilohertz, you don't feel anything, unless you attain that higher level of consciousness. In higher level of consciousness, you may actually see things beyond the spectrum of light. You can hear things beyond the spectrum of sound waves. So basically, you hear the entire vibration, all sorts of vibrations which are happening in the universe. We can only feel those vibrations in terms of sound and light, but it could be much beyond that, much beyond sound and light, which we don't know. Within our universe itself, forget about the multiverse or something. Within our universe itself, we don't know what is beyond the sound waves, beyond the light waves. We are trying to find devices, sensors, develop sensors in digital world which can capture beyond the sound waves, beyond the light waves, and try to find the answers. But so far, like you have radio waves, you are already able to communicate using radio waves and all, but they are much beyond the radio waves. Basically, using radio waves, like you transmit sound and picture, sound and video, you can actually, and now cell phone, Wi-Fi network, um, satellite communication, so many things you do using radio waves, but they could be much beyond radio waves, which we still haven't identified, we still haven't discovered. What is beyond radio frequency, the highest of radio frequencies? What is below 1 hertz of sound frequency? Below 1 hertz means it could be that you will observe the movement of electrons, protons, molecules. You go in depth. So basically, within an atom, it's the entire universe. Like you have the solar system, one sun and all the planets revolving around the sun. You have inside an atom or a molecule. A molecule is a combination of atoms. So inside one atom, you have a nucleus, and electrons and protons are floating around those nucleus. So nucleus is a neutral charge particle, which is basically a combination of electron and proton fused together. I think that's what I know. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, that's what I know. So, yes. So, what I was talking, universal consciousness, Nirvana or moksha, higher level of graduation. So, you will be born as a better being. Maybe you will have an eternal life, but it may not be entirely eternal. You will be like a Brahma of a particular universe, living for trillions of years. For you, it will be only 100 years of age. But for the universe, it will be trillions of years, because the time moves differently in different planes of existence, different planes of reality. Similarly, the time will be different. Just like light, sound, etc., the energy, the form of energy will be different. Instead of atoms, it could be something else. It doesn't have to be atoms and molecules. It doesn't have to be periodic table. It doesn't have to be physics, chemistry and maths. It could be something else in other universes. So the possibilities are endless, just like universe is endless, just like the physical aspect of endless, just like time is endless. So you talk about creation of time, start of time and space in the physical aspect of universe. So when you talk about singularity, you will think that I am basically conflicting myself, but it's not a conflict. There is no concept of time and space inside a black hole, because black hole is beyond the concept of time and space within our universe. So what I was talking in terms of galaxies, I think the galaxies are born from black holes, and the galaxies will get destroyed in the form of black holes, because after they are born, they are expanding. Once the expansion stops, I'll give that analogy later. I'll give an analogy of water. When the water gets sprayed out, it will keep on expanding. But let's say there is a funnel, so it is sprayed out of that funnel, but it is within that funnel, basically sprayed out within that funnel. So what will happen? Basically, because of the kinetic energy, it will keep on expanding, basically keep on, maybe there's a smaller slope, it's a funnel, the funnel is too big, so the slope is very, the slope angle is just like 0.1 degree, 1 degree or something like that. So water will keep on expanding till the time that expansion stops, that kinetic energy stops. After that kinetic energy stops, then what will happen? It will keep on going inside the hole of that funnel. Basically the gravity will pitch in, and then what will happen? Gradually all the water will get sucked inside that funnel. And then let's say there is a cycle, the water gets filled in, it becomes too much filled in, it gets pressurized. Let's assume that it gets pressurized, and it will when it is filling in it is pressurizing, and once the entire water gets pressurized inside that funnel, let's say the water quantity is that of the entire funnel, when it is sprayed out, it is everywhere. But when it starts sucking in, then basically the pressure starts building in inside the funnel. So let's say it's like a engine, the like old ancient steam engine. What will happen? Basically, it will suck in the steam to an extent. It will form a vacuum to suck the steam, and then it will compress that steam to such an extent that it will get blasted. Basically, it will basically get blasted in the form of energy, in the form of basically steam going out. So the piston will get pushed out. So that's how the piston is moving. It's the case in all the internal combustion engines, in our cars and bikes, etc. So energy gets sucked in initially, and then it gets compressed to such an extent that it either gets ignited if it is a petrol or gasoline engine, or it will automatically get blasted in the form of basically when it is a diesel engine, because of the extreme compression happening there. So first there is a cycle of expansion where the vacuum is created, and then there is a phase of contraction or compression, when that vacuum itself gets so much concentrated that it basically blasts. Basically it will blast and push the piston away and release the energy into the environment. So what will happen in the black hole? It will be like an internal combustion engine. It will release the energy when it becomes so much compressed that the entire universe goes inside. So that's why you have this cycle of expansion and contraction in this universe, that it will first, when it is born, it will rapidly expand because the kinetic energy is too high. Then that kinetic energy becomes potential energy, and then atoms and molecules form, electrons, protons, using electrons and protons. All the entire universe is born. And once that kinetic energy force becomes reduced, that expansion reduced, then the contraction will happen. So I don't think this expansion and contraction is happening for the entire universe, what we see. I think it is happening for the galaxies themselves. So you can see parallel universes just like different galaxies. Basically, every galaxy you can see them as a universe, and other galaxy as a parallel universe. Expansion and contraction. Every galaxy will have its own black hole from which they get born and they get sucked in independently. Every time, basically every fraction of a second, this birth and destruction of universe or galaxies are happening. So I think universe is not the combination of galaxies, or people when they call parallel universe. I'm talking about multiverse. I was talking about multiverse. It's beyond this physical aspect of these galaxies. There will be other universes with different forms of black holes and galaxies and all. Or within these black holes, multiple galaxies must be born. The galaxies which we see, feel, hear might be our own galaxies, our own world, our own plane, our own reality. But it may be beyond this reality. Basically, this expansion, contraction of this thing, when the basically all the universes or all the galaxies of different multiverses, basically different universes, get sucked into that black hole, and once everything gets sucked in, it will basically get blasted. Those energy will get blasted and form multiple universes, not just our own universe, our own galaxies, what we see. Maybe it is in the form of antimatter, maybe it is in the form of something else, we don't know, because we are not aware of it. We are not supposed to know it, because that's how we are designed. Our design only restrict us, our senses, to this particular reality, this particular universe. That doesn't mean within this reality doesn't exist any other reality. I don't believe that there will be a carbon copy of me into some other world. I believe there will be someone else, not me. I am unique in my own senses. They will be entirely different, basically, because there will be entire history, different timelines, different history. Even if they have similar constants and variables, even if they will have humans just like us, they will be entirely different civilization, history, growth, everything, because everyone is conscious. Everyone has their own free will, their own destiny. Destiny might be defined as per the design, but since they are not traveling in the single line, single straight line, like the expansion and contraction is happening within the universe using the global or universal consciousness. The universe itself is alive, but they follow those guidelines, those design aspects. But as a living being, we can change that design. We can expand and contract ourselves. When we start dieting, we reduce our weight, so our mass becomes reduced. Maybe the number of cells also reduces. If we expand, if we bloat, if we become obese, our mass increases, our weight increases, our accumulation of fat, our accumulation of this planet, this universe increases. So we can expand and contract anytime, any number of times in this entire world. Every day we are doing it unconsciously, subconsciously, depending upon what we eat, how much we consume as energy, how much we release as energy. So depending upon that, our accumulation happens or contraction happens. So you can consciously do it by dieting, by exercising. You can transform your physical body from an athletic body to a bloated body, from a bloated body to an entirely athletic, fit, as well as muscular body. Whatever you want, you can do. You have your free will. So it's not entirely up to your destiny. Of course, when you are born, you have a low level of consciousness. If you remain in low level of consciousness, everything will happen in your body. You don't know what is happening. You're just eating, shitting, dying, basically just like any other animal. But if you are aware, if you increase your consciousness level, you don't need to achieve nirvana. The more you increase your consciousness level, the more you are conscious, the more you know. Just consciousness is not enough. You need to know what you need to do. If you don't know what you need to do, you increase your consciousness level and you basically become a suicide bomber. You become a terrorist. So you also need to know what you need to do, as a good human being. So then only you go into the right path. Now that path could be anything. It could be in a zigzag manner. You explore things on its way. You have multiple destinations, or you have a single destination. If you have a single destination, very straight line travel, you will achieve that destination much faster than stopping in between and exploring things. But both of them have their own learning as well as their own fun. So it doesn't mean that you follow that shortest path and achieve the ultimate goal immediately. It will have its own sense of achievement, and exploring on your way will have its own sense of achievement. When you are traveling, let's say by flight, or you're teleporting yourself from let's say from Earth to some other universe, or to some other planet, thousands of light years ago, millions of light years beyond this particular planet. So you either travel millions of years, explore things on its way, or you simply get teleported. You go inside a wormhole, you end up being into that world. So both of them have their own pros and cons. So, and of course, you only live 70 years, 80 years, 100 years. So you can't be alive for 100 million years exploring things. So you need to have that sense of timelines as well. So your destination should not be so, it should not become so time consuming that you will not be able to reach that destination. So let's say if you are traveling 100 million light years away and you have defined destinations on its way, you will be stuck into your intermediate destination, or maybe you will not even achieve, basically travel to the nearest destination like Alpha Centauri. Basically Alpha Centauri is like, I think, 26 light years away only. But to reach Alpha Centauri itself, even if you are traveling with the speed of light, which for now is entirely impossible, and it may never be possible to travel at the speed of light or beyond that. But let's assume you travel by speed of light. Even then, you will take 26 years to go there. So if you are traveling at the age of 70, you will be dead when you reach Alpha Centauri. So your destinations, your travel plan should be such that you are able to reach the destination within a reasonable time frame. Otherwise, you will have to follow the shortest path. Sometimes that shortest path will not be sufficient, like traveling to those 100 million light years away. Even if you are traveling at speed of light, there is no way you can actually reach there unless you hibernate yourself, unless you do something, or you develop a wormhole which will take you there within minutes or within seconds or within 1 second, within a fraction of a second. So unless you have those kind of mechanism, beyond the normal science and technology, what we know, beyond the consciousness level, what we know, we will not be able to reach there. So the same way, you need to achieve nirvana to become a higher being, become a deity, become a Devi Devta, or go to Swarg, go to paradise. Maybe that paradise is beyond this universe. So it will have lesser amount of sorrow, lesser amount of evil, and more happiness. And you will see this world from there. You will see the entire universe from there, or at least this galaxy from there. Maybe every galaxy has its own paradise, I don't know, or hell. These are the things we need to explore. These are the things I need to explore. And this will make the ultimate sense to me, to my life. Instead of simply working to earn some money or working on technology, anything, electric vehicles or something. Of course, this is future in this world. That is how we need to basically work towards. But at the same time, you need to spend some time for yourself to explore these possibilities, to explore beyond this world, to explore beyond this worldly affair. Okay. I think I have spoken enough. Thank you for listening for now. So I will end this conversation now, because this will keep on going on and on. Quite a lot of things are there in my mind in these topics, in these expanded range of topics which I have started exploring. Eventually, I was actually thinking about these things since the age of 6 or something. So I really want to explore universe and much beyond the universe. I want to find the answers. Why we are born, why we are being, why we are like this, and what is the sense of our living, birth and death, what happens after we die, and how the universe is born, how it will collapse, and what will happen after then. Whatever things I am analyzing, it's subject to revision, subject to further investigation, research, learning from others as well, who might be researching in the same topic. So I need to find ways to connect with those beings first. So that's how, Gautam Buddha first, how on its way to Nirvana, first he mingled with the beings, the greatest of saints and sages. He did meditation with them. Before meditating himself separately, once he realized that whatever knowledge and experience I had to gain from them, he had already achieved them, and he wanted to achieve much beyond that. So that's why he developed his own ways of meditation, living his life, etc. The reason he wanted to borrow food from others is because he didn't want to earn his livelihood doing things, doing the worldly affairs. So that's why those bhikshus are important. They devote their entire life with learnings and teachings. Their work is in the form of teaching whatever they have learned in this worldly affair, which is beyond the normal science, technology, education, something what you teach. Spirituality, spiritually or mystically, you attain much more knowledge, experience, enlightenment than learning the preachings and teachings of worldly gurus. So, spirituality and mysticism is very important in everyone's life to get enlightened, to get that sense, at least that sense of higher consciousness, higher level of intelligence, beyond the worldly affair, beyond the science of existence. Okay, I think I will stop for now. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.